Hi, y'all. It's Brigitte with Real Things Living. Today, my guest is Justin Long. He's an author, a podcast host, and a hospital administrator for the Spring Hill Equine Veterinary Clinic. Hopefully, I said that right. Can
Yep.
you say hi, Justin?
Good morning, everybody, or afternoon or evening, wherever you are.
Exactly. I'm so glad that we connected. I love talking to like-minded people. We had a short conversation before I hit record, and that's what you like to do, right? You want to get the vibe, and Justin has a really good, authentic vibe, I think.
I hope so.
I, right. I think it's important to be honest about life. I think that's one of the reasons I started this podcast is to share stories. My started with my personal story, which is I've it's kind of hilarious. People are like shocked. I'm like, hey, I just have a positive attitude, and after I get through something, that's what helps you move forward, and that's what resilience is part of that. Some people think that word is overused, but I think it's something you are not born with. I think you have to. It grows or you learn about it. It's a based on your experiences. My first question that came to my mind is you're in the veterinarian field and you got into it because of your wife, right?
That's right. I married into it.
And she's obviously a big horse lover, so she has a equine. So it's actually a veterinary clinic, you said, right?
Yeah, yeah. She is a horse doctor. We have a four doctor practice, and when I met her, it was a two doctor practice. But she was a business person and a doctor, and like seven classes above me in every way. And I was so impressed with her, and I'm still so impressed with her to this day. It has not changed at all.
So how did you meet her since you're not involved with horses previously?
We are an eHarmony success story.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, I was back when online dating was still somewhat navigable. I think that today, it's all apps and swiping, and you don't have a chance at ever meeting a like-minded person. But
Right.
I was fortunate in my timing to meet her.
That's good. I mean, that timing is important, and it shows that you were open to, I should say, newer technology, but to newer options. And
For sure.
so you are in Florida. Did you grow up in Florida, or?
No, I moved here to be with her.
Oh,
I actually lived outside of Savannah, Georgia, most of my adult life. That's where I got out of the army,
oh,
and
okay.
uh, and I had exhausted all of the other dating resources that I could find. And eHarmony is expensive, and but it's psychology based, and I appreciate that. I'm an intellectual kind of guy,
That's
but
good.
I did that one to prove to my best friend that there was nobody in the whole world for me, that I was doomed to be alone. And my wife, who was not my wife's time, obviously, but she was doing the same thing. She was doing an eHarmony thing to prove to her best friend that there was nobody in the world for her.
You
And
guys,
we found each other.
you guys are meant to be. I think that's the I don't know, divine intervention. I was kind of trying to be sarcastic, but it's kind of important. You just don't know. You just gotta try different things. And I didn't know you were in the military. So what branch? I know Army, but what particular unit?
Oh, I was an engineer. I was a bulldozer operator,
Okay.
and that was my ticket away from home to get away from my parents. So I didn't go in out of any sense of duty or patriotism. That was an escape tunnel for
Yeah.
me.
I think my husband kind of, well, he got in trouble, so he had to, he had to, sorry. People don't know this. He was kind of prompted he needed to go to military. He was a troublemaker, and because he was pissed off, excuse me, at his parents,
Yep.
what they got divorced and what his father did. So he acted out. Most boys do when they're vet.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what he did. And so I think it's funny. I love the backstory. Like, why did you join the military? It's because he got the judge said he had
Right.
to join.
That or jail.
Exactly. He was 17 at the time. So he did it right after he turned 18, which I think is it's funny. I mean, I think that kind of stuff, it's not for everybody. Military is not. I grew up around it I call myself a brat, and I knew I wasn't going to marry a military guy. I just because the
That's
lifestyle,
a tough world to live in.
it's very tough. I mean, I do appreciate the learning from it, but you probably learned a lot too. You know,
Oh, I did. I absolutely did.
you get some discipline, and I think we do need that. Um, Not to an extreme extent, but I think it helps you stay a little bit focused, and it's an important skill. Uh, like what you said, an engineer. That is, my husband did jumping out of airplanes.
It's
He was
harder to do that in the civilian world and make money.
correct, but he did it because he had to go. So I'm gonna go do something fun and jump out of airplanes. But he ended up becoming an MP, which I think is hilarious. And military police are just through the 82nd Airborne. But he learned a lot, and that's how he met me because, excuse me, my stepfather was a company commander in the 82nd Airborne, and I had a part-time job. I was going to college on base, and that's kind of how I met him, at a party kind of thing. But he was
Yeah.
really he it was just I would never would have met him if I hadn't got a job on base part-time.
You
So,
end
and
up
that
marrying
was
an army guy after all.
well, he got out of the army. I said, you got it, before I married him. And I worked for the provost marshal, and which is the police chief. So that's kind of how it worked out. And I just thought, whatever, I was making some part-time money, going to college. That's all I did.
Hmm.
But it was, I appreciate all these different perspectives. And I do notice my mom ended up becoming, by the way, a psychologist because she was a military spouse. And I think there's a lot of mental health issues in general going around now. We're talking about it more. And I think my mom saw that. And so she's retired now. But I think she's was helping people with that in that regard, the spouses. And I think men in general, I don't know if it's more common now that they're talking about it, or does that kind of lead to alcoholism too? Maybe they drink because they're stressed out. I'm just curious.
There is so much mental health trauma in the military and around the military. I think for the people that are in and their families, like
Yes.
it's a very very challenged environment in that way. And I was no exception to that rule at all.
And right, and that's kind of why I think when I grew up around it, I just saw, even though my fathers were nice to me, I just saw, I didn't like the vibe. So the right
Yeah.
word. But my husband, we got married later after he got out of the military. I just, some people are meant for it. You know what I'm saying? Some people are built for it to
Hmm.
be in that environment. That's their mentality. I think, yeah, I just have to give people who choose that go that route, you got to give them some credit. Um, but I was not into that. And I think, you know, do they have, I know back in the day, they used to have a lot of, I'm just going back to the horse thing, a lot of horses in that regard.
The Army still has a few horses,
Yeah.
but it's not anything like it used to be. I
Right.
think just budget cuts, like the parade stuff, gets reduced before everything else. So
Oh,
there's
yeah.
very little use for them these days. But they still use them, especially like the funeral details and things like that.
Right. I remember seeing a couple of funerals when I was younger. I remember the horses, and then I think
Hmm.
they had a nearby that I mentioned before that we started recording that I was a little afraid of horses because they put me on a horse when I was too little to try to ride one. But they're trying to make you brave, right?
Yeah.
But I do like again what you're doing to help animals in general, and you're helping my understanding, people in general. So you have your book. What is your title of your book?
The book is called The Righteous Rage of a 10-Year-Old Boy. And it is a fly on the wall experience of going through a year of trauma therapy with me.
Okay.
And my idea behind that is that there's so much stigma around therapy, especially for men. But I think in our culture in general, the idea of going to therapy is really like people ridicule that out of ignorance. And
Oh,
people that could really benefit from it, we're all human beings. We're afraid of change and something different and the unknown and all that. So um, I wanted to write a book that would show people what the process is, what it's like, what you have to do when you're in there, and what you can get out of it, what the benefits are. And so this is kind of a proof of concept for what therapy is from a user's perspective rather than from the therapist
Right.
perspective.
And so you were 10, I guess, when you had to do
Oh
it?
no, I was
I just heard the title 10-year-old.
yeah, well, a lot of my traumas happened to me when I was a little kid. I grew up in a very dysfunctional household. My mom and dad were both emotionally distraught people dealing with their own traumatic stuff that they hadn't ever, had any professional help with. And I was kind of a victim of circumstance in that. But
Right.
I had a lot of child abuse, and that stuff, impacted me, of course. And I never recognized it as child abuse, and I didn't do anything about it until I was nearly 40. But it impacted my adult life, my working life, my relationships, everything about my existence was impacted by that stuff.
Did you have siblings, or is it just
Yes. Yep. I have a sister that's 6 years younger than me and a brother that's 11 years. So we're spread out quite a bit. We each had very different experiences growing up, but my sister also had a lot of trauma in her childhood.
so you were the oldest? Sounds like
Yeah.
you
Yep.
probably. I think the oldest experiences. I shouldn't say harsher stuff, but I meant because you were the
Generally.
first.
Yep.
Generally, right. And I have an older brother, and I'm just grateful for him. You probably helped your sister more than you realized, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
wanted.
I think the oldest kid is the test dummy.
Yes.
And you're getting the parents when they're at their youngest and still, dealing with all of their stuff, and they haven't really established what being a grown up is and all that. So
It's yeah. I'm sorry that you had to you deal with that. I mean, that's what I said. I didn't want to because I experienced certain things too. Because of my dad and my mom was married 3 times before I was
mhm.
17. So
Yeah.
that kind of, mm,
That brings a lot with it.
it brings a lot with it. We're like, what's going on here? And I was teased for that. Like, what's wrong with your mother? And then she's not
Right.
American, that kind of stuff. And I think kids in general, they don't know empathy sometimes.
Oh, kids are so cruel,
They're too
unbelievably
honest.
cruel.
They're too, they're too honest. And I'm sure you probably did your friends know what was going on or
Oh, I didn't understand at the time how all this worked, but I'll tell you a little bit about my childhood. So my dad was a workaholic. He didn't turn to drugs and alcohol the way that I did. He just tried to work every second of every day to try to get the pat on the back from his dad. And
uh,
and so he had these impossible standards of perfection for me. So I'd have to come home from school and do all these chores. And, one of them that I use in the book as an example is stacking firewood because we heated our house with a wood stove. And my job was to stack the firewood after I got home from school every day. And the firewood had to be in this perfect stack, like it had to be flat across the top and no pieces sticking out the front or the back. And my dad would come home and we would see how many pieces were sticking out more than a half inch. And I'd get a spanking for each one, right?
wow.
So like, it was never perfect. Like I got a spanking every day. But what that taught me as a kid is that this is the standard and you're never going to meet it. You're going to fall short every day and you're going to get punished. And you will get up tomorrow and work as hard as you can to do it again and you'll get punished for that too. So of course that creates insecurities, right? I was I think my mom was on the other end of that spectrum. My mom grew up rejected by her mom. Her mom wanted the perfect little girl that she could take to sewing circle and show off. And my mom had scoliosis and she had a metal framework in her back and she was a little bit hunchbacked and all, so she was not the perfect kid, but her little sister was. And so my mom's mom rejected her in favor of her little sister. And so she never got over that. But she wasn't a disciplinarian. So when I was a kid and I would act up while my dad was at work, my mom would make me pull the big trash can in from the curb and sit inside that and wait for my dad to come home and spank me. Right.
That's
So,
brutal. Sorry, I know
right.
stunk.
Right. It was horrid. Yeah. Like you can't breathe in there. There's always wet stuff in the bottom that seeps through your clothes. Like,
Right.
so,
That's
that, but,
your life.
that stuff teaches you who you are. Right. Like my mom, I don't have any value because my mom throws me away and
Right.
I'm never going to be good enough. And so I took that understanding of who I am to school. And, we teach other people how to treat us. So if I was the outcast at home, then that's who I am. It's my identity. So that's how I showed up at school. And of course, that's what I became because that's, I didn't know any other way to be other than an outcast. So yeah, I got it a lot at school.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's just unfortunate that kids are just turds. Sorry. I should say. I- I'm trying
They're
not,
horrible.
I'm
I
not
think
trying
kids
to,
are so cruel to one another.
it is.
I can't remember who it was. Somebody famous. There's a quote that children are the perfect soldiers because they love to fight and they have no concept of death and their own mortality.
Right.
And I think that's true.
It is. It is unfortunate. I mean, there's pros and cons to all that. You have some takeaways. And so I guess as soon as you turn 18, that's when you left, right? And joined.
Yeah, I actually joined the Army. I joined the National Guard unit in my local town when I was 17, while
Okay.
I was a junior in high school.
Oh, wow.
And I went to basic training the summer between my junior and my senior year. And then as soon as I graduated, I was out of there, right? So that was my plan. I had my escape plan. I think probably by the time I was 16, 15 or 16, I knew how I was getting out of town.
Right.
And I acted on that as early as possible.
I have chills in my body, just because of what you're saying, because I had to get the heck out of where I grew up just because of, I was teased about my mom being married multiple times, and that just I don't know why they were just mean. It's not me doing that. And so,
Hmm.
and same thing. I had a growing up being had to be perfect to do anything, and that kind of holds you back if you're
Hmm.
told you're not. Um, yeah, I'm not gonna go down that path. But yeah, I just as soon as I graduated high school, I shot the hell out of there. Sorry, but just because I wanted to be gone, new environment,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I ended up going to college near where my mom and new husband lived. So they were helping me pay for the first year of school. I had a college scholarship opportunity, right? And I like no, I was like, I don't want people telling me what. I think that's my thing. I didn't want people telling me what to do.
Right. We got to rebel. We're getting out from underneath the thumb, and we're never going to be
Like
under anybody
goodbye,
else's thumb.
right? And
Yeah.
people, why did she do it? I'm like, but I'm a better. I had to get away. You have to change your environment. That's what you did,
Hmm. Yeah.
and that's kind of some people are afraid to do that, but that helped you. Eh,
Absolutely. Like I got as far away as I could. We lived in Oklahoma when I joined the active army. I transferred from National Guard to active army, and I've picked Fort Stewart, Georgia, because that was as far away from Oklahoma as I could get without leaving the continent.
Sorry,
And I never went back. I stayed in Georgia until I met my wife when I was 38.
that's cool. Yeah, I grew up near Fort Benning, and I was born in Fort Knox, lived by Fort Benning and Fort Bragg. And then at one point for a little bit in California. I don't remember what base that is. It's near.
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. I don't know. I could. I have a funny story story to tell you. My husband got out. Excuse me. My boyfriend got out of the military, went home to Wisconsin, and that's when I had moved to California because for a little bit. And then he called me and said he missed me and wanted to see me. And so to meet his parents. And so I bought a one-way ticket and I didn't tell him. I'm terrible. But my mom knew, but I'm like, I ain't gonna come back to Cal. I didn't want to be around living there. And so eventually when I got there with 7 suitcases, that's what I'm just very, like, we're kind of similar mindset, Justin. But he's
Yeah.
like, what? And so I met his parents and then he said, I don't have a job yet. Right. And I didn't either. So he drove me back to the South so I could live with my real father for a little
Mm.
bit. And I didn't know. And so finally got a job, and my real dad bought me a car, a piece, whatever. I had to get around. And
Yeah.
it's just kind of funny how I was rebelling a little bit. I didn't like, even though I appreciate my stepfather's military background, he didn't realize how he was, you
It can
know,
be very controlling.
very, and I just like, I mean, I love him. But my mom was in a way too. She didn't realize that.
Hmm.
Oh, and I was 20. I'm like, goodbye. And
Yeah.
as a girl, it was harder in the 80s, to do that
Sure.
kind of stuff. And I'm just, and my brother and I, got in a apartment. He needed help too. He was going, weird. He was, I should say weird, but it affects that's why I didn't want to marry someone because of what I experienced. I don't think they
Right.
realize I mean that. I don't think, but
Do you think you turned into a control freak yourself?
maybe. My husband says I'm a little bossy. I think women are in general, sorry.
Yeah.
But I'm
I
more
think it depends on your nature, but
I'm more laid back
yeah.
than other girls that I grew up with. I'm more laid back because I didn't want to do that to my sons. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I was
Well,
meant
you had some awareness of that then. That
that's what
helps
it
so
is.
much. Yeah.
I shouldn't
I
say
didn't have the awareness.
I shouldn't say I'm laid back, but I'm just saying I try not to do what was said to me. I'm sure I'm guilty. I joke sometimes my mom comes out of my mouth sometimes, but we all don't realize that. But I joke, I was meant to be a boy mom,
Yeah,
right? Boys are more risky than
sure.
girls are more emotional. And I was the middle child, by the way. So my brother was the wild one. You know, so she
Yeah.
was wild. Like you said, the test. And then he's 4 years old. And he had to babysit me. Isn't that insane? I mean, I was like, friggin', he was like barely 8. You know what I'm saying? Back then.
Yeah,
We,
that was my childhood too.
right. Like we survived, right? So I'm saying you had to
Yeah.
help your sister. And
Yeah, I'm like 9, my sister's 2. I'm babysitting. That's
right.
crazy.
My brother didn't get me killed. I mean, he would dare me to do stuff, but he
Sure.
didn't know any better.
Right.
Um,
I think, things were very different in the 70s and 80s.
yes,
I don't think that kind of stuff happens much now, but
but I kind of, in a way, it's kind of good because now I think these days, my understanding, the parents are too.
yeah, the pendulum swings it the other direction.
Yeah, I think I've seen that. It's in the other
Mhm.
direction now, and um, like my sister is a school teacher. She teaches 7th grade. I convinced her. She's younger than me and my brother a lot. She's 8 years younger than me, 12 years younger than my brother. But she was so good around children. I saw her how she was good. I like kids, but I don't want to be a teacher, Justin. You know what I'm saying? I don't have that. I'd rather go help the animals. I know it's
Right. No, I'm right there with you.
right. And she teaches the hardest grade, 13-year-olds. Okay.
Oh man.
And
Yeah.
but I think that's just her calling. But she said the parents have gotten really bad the last decade. She's been doing it for like 20 years.
Yeah.
But and I don't know if it's the insecurity the parents have, maybe it's our culture, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I think every generation, is doing things in response to the way they were raised. So,
Correct.
the
Right.
boomers were rebelling against the greatest generation, and then the Gen X rebelled against the boomers, and
Yeah, I'm a Gen Xer. I mean, I think
me too.
right.
Yep.
We're,
Yeah, we were the latchkey kid generation.
yeah, and it's the parents my sister's having to deal with are millennials. Sorry,
Yep.
that's what it is.
Right. Yeah. And then at some point, the Gen X or the Gen Zers are going to be having this same conversation about their kids and grandkids.
Right. And like
The
our
way
kids
people.
are my kids are Gen C. That makes
Yeah.
sense. The older Gen Z.
Yeah.
Um, so it was, I'm not, you know, and my boys told one thing I tried to ingrain in them, Justin, is like reading because I thought that was important. But that's what, as a latchkey kid, I had by myself all the time. So I read the encyclopedia. I didn't have any other, and I couldn't read my mom's romance novels. She had romance novels. I should be reading that as a kid, but I read this. So I just like, oh, it made me think. And I think that is important. That kind of a physical, that's just me, physical book. I ingrained that into my sons to,
Mhm.
you could play, but at bedtime, I read them books and I got my husband to do that with me. And I just think that's important to
I
engage
think
with your
so too.
kids somehow. And then because they were boys, um, I had them get involved in some kind of sports just because, like I said, they have so much energy. And I
Mhm.
had them try different things, right? Some of them were boring for me, but you just gotta. I think you got to interact with your kids somehow, and
For sure. For sure.
not tell them what to do, but let them try different things. And that's kind of what I learned from my upbringing. And my husband is actually was really good father. So based on his
That-
wildness,
That's
there's
important.
so many, but his parents love me. They said, you calmed him down. My, okay. Well, they were remarried from other, but his dad had a second life. Isn't that terrible? And he found out about it. So
Yeah.
you can imagine, you don't know what your parents are doing, right?
That's got to be hard to deal with.
It was, but so I think you're trying to help, excuse me, my sinuses are bothering me. To try to help people um be, I don't know, be more positive. I think that's what I try to talk about now. That's what we have to acknowledge things that are bad, but how to get through it. And you mentioned something too about how we try to overmanage ourselves, maybe, right? And then as you had, what is the personality type aspect? How does that help knowing what your personality type is?
Well, I think understanding yourself and how you think, how you communicate, how you react to things is really important in everything that you do. But it's especially important in the relationships that we have with other people. I, my wife and I are very different in a lot of ways. I'm a details, logic oriented person. My wife is a broad overview, bullet point kind of person. And when we first met, we really had a hard time communicating effectively. Right? We're trying to run a business together. I'm learning my way to the vet clinic and how to do things in the vet clinic world, which is different from the stuff that I had done before. But when I would sit and talk to her about stuff, or I'm trying to make a decision, I'm trying to get her input, I would come to her with reams of information, and she would just be frustrated and like, I feel like we're going to fight when I'm just trying to talk to you about what we've got going on here, right? But then when she would come to me with something, she'd be like, 3 bullet points and ready to make a decision. And I'm like, I need way more information than that, right? But we didn't know that we were different in that way. But we learned that, and we learned, that I shouldn't drown her in information and she shouldn't starve me for information, that we've got to meet each other where we are. But until we got into personality types and behavior tendencies and things like that, we use a program called the Five Voices, which is fantastic. They've taken the Myers-Briggs and condensed it down into a much more manageable behavior assessment and behavior program that's mostly designed for businesses, but it has changed everything about our relationship together, and not to mention the culture at the vet clinic. But just being able to communicate with each other effectively and understand how each other thinks has created success where there probably would have been a lot of emotional difficulty in a relationship, and probably would have ended up in failure if we didn't overcome this and figure it out.
I like that you took, looking at that perspective and figuring out a way to work together. I call that a yin and yang kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
right thing. My husband and I are opposite too, but we do have some things in common. I'm more like you. I'm a little detailed. I don't know where that comes from, but he figures things out too, but in a different way.
Yeah.
And so you got the therapy thing you mentioned earlier. I think that is so important. People need to be more open to that. I think I did take a Myers-Briggs. I don't remember the results, but I'm in the right field because of my personality,
Yeah.
right?
And that's a big deal too. I think
Yep.
people wind up in jobs that they're not suited for just based on their personality type. And then you're miserable in your career. And if you're also in a relationship with somebody that you can't communicate with because you don't understand one another, like you spend your whole life being frustrated. And that's a terrible way to live.
That's not good for your health.
No, absolutely not.
It
No,
can.
oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to cough. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. But I think that understanding your negative tendencies or how you come across to other people is the other side of that. As the details guy, one of the things that I do is that when somebody floats an idea, I try to find a weakness in it, figure out, is this going to work or is it not going to work? And so to me, like, especially at the vet clinic, we have staff meetings all the time and trying to figure out how we want to go forward as a business. And people put ideas out there, and most of them are flawed. And if I'm unaware of my behavior, then I'm just going to sit there and point out the flaws in everybody's ideas. And from their perspective, every time they say something, Justin shoots it out of the sky, right? And at some point, people just stop putting ideas out there because it's going to be a negative experience for them. I have to be aware of that about myself, how I phrase, maybe this idea isn't going to work. I like the idea, but here's a flaw in it. But be welcoming of, bring the ideas out. And we've taken that to the extreme of, like, we're very open about our personality types in the vet clinic. We talk about it a lot so that everybody is constantly reminded, oh, Justin's a guardian. His job is to protect the business and make sure that we don't do something that's going to lead to failure, right? So don't take it personal if you shoot your idea down. Justin's job is to remember that, oh, we've got 6 nurturers who are very soft-spoken people who are, they're the feelers. They're the relationship people. And I will run over them. My wife will run over them. She's a pioneer, like she's the bulldozer personality type. We have to be super conscious to make sure that the soft-spoken people on our team have a chance to say their say and have a voice and feel heard before we bulldoze across them and make them feel like they're unimportant. But I think when you're conscious about that stuff in every aspect of your life, it makes you more aware of how people perceive you, and that allows you to change your behavior and your communication style so that you can effectively form relationships and achieve results that you wouldn't otherwise.
I like that. I learned too, to like pause and before and not react, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know some people who seen them react and how it affects everybody else or the vibe in the room, especially.
Right.
Um,
I am a knee-jerk reactor too. Like
yeah,
trying to train myself to not do that has
right.
been a long, slow process, but it's
I,
so important.
I think, like, I think that's where my skill set. I was told that I use both sides of my brain. You're talking about.
Mm.
I'm very creative, but I'm also analytical.
Me too. I think you and I are probably the same personality type.
Right. And I'm just very, that's why I look and I'm like, okay, then I have to, think about it before, like you said, I look at everything. And where my husband's kind of detailed too, but in a different aspect, right?
Right.
But in a business environment, people always come to me for some reason for advice because that skill set
It's
that
a well-rounded, yeah.
I'm rounded and I look at it, like you said, well, this could happen, this could happen, but it depends on, the topic or the situation.
Yeah.
And I'm
Are
just,
you into like art and music, any of that kind of stuff?
yes,
Me too.
I'm into writing. I like to read, like I mentioned before. I used to be, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a photographer,
Mm-hmm.
but I was like the yearbook photographer. That was so cool. And then I took a class or two in my first year in college. And I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna make money on this. So, but I just did it I figured that out, right?
Right,
And
right.
I had back in the day, I had people, which is I Warren girls, they were trying to recruit me to be a model and all this stuff and an actress. And I had that woman, but no, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And my niece, she's 20 now, but when a couple years ago, she was like, I'm going to be a model. I said, honey, don't try to make money on your looks. That's my advice because it's not going to, I should say it's not going to last, but it's not healthy.
In terms of emotional mental health, that is a horrible profession.
Correct.
Horrible. And I don't think you can, even if you got a team of therapists trying to get you through it, I don't think you can do that unscarred.
And correct. And that's why I'm not surprised at all these things about girls coming out about the issues they had when they were younger as models and actresses and all that stuff. I just knew I think because positive aspect of growing up, I had these men protected me, my brother and my dad. I knew kind of, that why they were protecting me then. But as soon as I turned 18, everyone like, "Oh, you're so pretty." And I'm like what? I didn't want to do that. I just like I didn't want to stare at a camera and smile. It was,
Right. And constantly be criticized for being, every tiny flaw that you might or
yeah.
might not have.
And I kind of knew maybe my mom she did sometimes. She didn't mean it, Justin, about, my eyebrows need to be a certain way. And I'm like, what? And she grew up in that, she's
Hmm.
84 now, but you think about how those women, how they had to deal with it. Like you said, your mom, her,
Hmm.
her sister was picked as better. And I think my mom was the only girl. She had three brothers, I think. So
She had to be the one.
he had to be the one, so she was over analyzed, right?
Yep.
And then so that you just got to learn from your environment too and not
Yeah.
react. I can't blame my mom for the stuff that she pointed out to me because she was regurgitating whatever probably was said.
Right. Yeah. She was steeped in that world.
She was steeped into it. And you know my brother, I'm so glad for him. He didn't want to go in the military either, just because he was the older one, like you. And so he's like,
Yeah.
no thanks. So he was super smart. I mean, he got a degree in math, and he was very creative, but he thought he didn't like it. Like, I don't know. That's probably where I get my creativity from, is surviving my brother. Um, I think it's so cool. I guess my last question is, how to deal. What do your takeaway or advice for people if they're dealing with something toxic in their life? What do you recommend to them? It could be more than one thing.
Yeah. I think there's so many aspects of this, but when I think I spent most of my life I described it as being a pinball. Like I reacted to everything. I didn't have any direction of my own. I just bounced off of a million different things throughout life. And some of those things were good things and a lot of them were bad things. But I didn't have any direction. I didn't have any sense of self. And I think that I I drew my value from other people. Like I based how I felt about myself on what I thought other people thought of me. And that is it's a losing thing. Like there's no way to have a good sense of who you are and to feel good about who you are, because you constantly need input from other people. Like you need every day you need somebody to say you're amazing. And like, okay, I'm amazing today. Whew. Because on the inside I didn't feel like I was amazing at all. I felt like I was a piece of crap. And which is the understanding of who I was that I formed based on how my parents treated me when I was a kid, right? So, what I think the biggest, most important thing that happened to me is going through trauma therapy. I did a system called EMDR, which is a trauma therapy treatment thing, and it allows you to change the emotions that are tied to memories. And so I could go to all of these childhood events with an adult perspective and recognize what's actually happening in that situation versus what 8 or 10 year old Justin thought was happening in that situation. And in doing that, I recognized that I was fine. I wasn't the problem. Like I was okay. And I can change when I think about myself at 10 years old or 14 years old or 20 years old. Instead of having a negative perception of who I was, I can have a positive perception, which changes everything about the way that I feel about myself. And that is so powerful. Like that changed everything about my life. It changed how I feel about myself, obviously, but it changes how I interact with other people. It takes a lot of those trigger things away. And, like we were talking about, constantly being criticized. I could not take criticism as an adult. Like in the workplace, when a supervisor would correct me on something, I would want to fight to the death about it because it cuts me to the bone, right? Because
Right.
that's a raw, open wound. And not taking that kind of stuff personal is recognizing, oh, if the pipe counts off, the pipe counts off. I'll go recount it. It's not a big deal. Like that changes everything about my experience in life, not just for me, but for everybody around me. Like for my wife, for my team, for the person on the other end of the phone at AT&T when the internet's down and I've been stuck in the robot tree for 45 minutes trying to get to a person. Like everything is different in my life, and it's different in a better way. And I just think that it's so important for people to know that if you don't feel good about who you are, you have the power to change that. Things can be better.
I love that. I like your honesty, and I call the being you're being authentic. You're being the real Justin,
That's
and
right.
you're sharing that is so important, especially for men. I think mostly men deal with this, but they don't talk about it.
Nobody ever talks about it. And
Yeah.
what happens, and because of that, my experience, I compared the way I felt to the way everybody around me looked. And I felt bad on the inside. Everybody else seemed cool on the outside. It never occurred to me that half of those guys are faking the funk,
Oh yeah.
And when you compare your insides to everybody else's outside, you're going to lose 100% of the time. And it's just ignorance. I didn't know that I wasn't the only one that has emotional challenges, right? I feel bad about who I am. Other people feel that way too. But there's no reason to be ashamed about that. And especially once you know that it exists and that you can do something about it, I feel like you have a responsibility to yourself and everybody else to do that.
I I think the first step you got to do is ask for help for some to
Mm-hmm.
the right. Get a human involved, or another human. I think, and
Yep.
not. I know some people. I've read that people are doing AI stuff. They're like, don't, because AI doesn't know. You want, like you said, the real feedback and some real.
But if having a conversation with AI about it is your first step in acknowledging
That's
that
good.
maybe I have a challenge, I think it's a great first step to soften you up and recognize, okay, that didn't kill me. Nobody kicked my
That's a
door
good
in and
point.
shot me for being a sissy because I asked AI about this. Like maybe I can take one more
They
step
should start
closer.
doing that. I just think
Mhm.
we need to be more open. And I know there are counselors in school. I think I did have to talk to one when I was in, when my mom got divorced a couple times. I had to talk to a counselor because I was being I was being teased or bullied for that. I'm like,
Right.
and
Something you have zero control over.
I had no control over that. And the counselors helped me. I never saw a therapist, but I saw a counselor. So I think more
Right.
schools need to make sure they have those available for kids, because especially in the public schools, they're those people that go to public schools. They don't have the funds or
Hmm.
the
Yeah,
access.
I grew up poor. There was no way I was ever going to get exposed to any of that kind of stuff.
Right. It's just I'm just glad this is the good positive side of tech, though. You and I could talk about this in different cities, different states, actually.
Right?
But I just think it's really good, and I love that you're helping, trying to just being open and helping your, the veterinary clinic that you have, because that is so, just a work environment that is so important to people outside their personal lives, right?
Yeah,
'Cause-
for sure. One of the things, because I am a huge advocate for mental health, it's changed my life. And so I talk about that at work too. And, we provide mental health benefits for all of our employees. If they want to go see a counselor or a therapist, we'll pay for it because A, as an employer, I feel like it's my responsibility to mentor my team and help them grow into the best versions of themselves that they can be, right?
right.
And B, the more emotionally healthy people are, the better they work on a team and the more productive the workplace is overall. It becomes a good, positive environment, a good culture that everybody wants to participate in. And we're a more successful business. People gravitate towards that on the client side of things because they recognize that you have a positive vibe going on. And I think that spreads like that attitude about mental health, being normal in the workplace. Those people are taking that everywhere that they go in their life, and like that spreads.
Yes.
It's how you change the world.
Like the domino effect kind of
That's
thing.
right.
And you don't have to, like what you're doing. We're not here to help millions of people from this conversation. Just you want one person or a couple, and then they'll talk about it. That's kind
Hmm.
of how I see it.
That's right.
I think another thing kind of go. like the numbers. They were so focused on, when they're doing something, they want to have these major results right away. It doesn't always happen.
That's
And
not how change takes place.
correct. And I think, but that's what people are pushing. And
Right.
so then that pulls people back. Well, I don't want it to do something, right? And
Right.
so I think what you're doing is fantastic. And I love, as from a male perspective too, you're being honest and you're helping more people than you realize. And I'm glad that you wrote a book because I love books. So can you,
Me too.
yeah, I think it's a great way to just pause and be in your own mind and then think.
Hmm.
I think that I know there's a lot of books that are made into movies, but I prefer the books
I
because,
do too. There's
right,
so
because
much more there.
it's so much more there. And then you can, I know the conversation, or I should say conversation, but can go, you can, change it the way you want, right? Your
Right.
perspective is there. So, Justin, where can people learn more about you and where can they get your book?
My website is jboydlong.com. And Boyd is my middle name. I had to use that to separate myself from the actor, Justin Long. Even though I'm far better looking than he is, he's still got more money and he's got the Google lockdown. So jboydlong.com has all of my books. It has my blog. It's got links to podcasts that I've been on a lot of different podcasts talking about stuff, and links to social media on there as well.
I love that. I love what you're doing. And I just, I really applaud what you're, like I said, I'm just so happy for you. It makes me happy talking to someone so honest like you and to not trying to sell something. How's that? So,
Right. Well, I think that if you have the opportunity to have a deep, sincere conversation with somebody where you can be your authentic self and talk about, things that have hurt you and how you got past that, like that's the most important way you can spend your time. And I get so much out of having conversations like this. So I highly encourage everybody to try it out.
yes, definitely do that. And thank you so much, Justin. I'm so glad we connected. And for those that are listening, I'll include the links he mentioned in the description.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on the show. This has been a great conversation.
This is awesome. And you're a great speaker too, by the way. You
Thank you.
are. Thank you guys.